the 6th of October, 2025. Dawn breaks over Austin, Texas. FBI tactical units move through empty corridors of a state government building. Their target is on the 3rd floor. They're not here for a terrorist, not for a spy. They're here for an election official. And what they find inside his office will expose the largest government corruption case in Texas history. The raid began at 5:23 hours. Agents hit 3 locations simultaneously: Ethan Mallory's state office, his home in the suburbs, and a warehouse registered under a shell company. Mallory held one of the most trusted positions in Texas government. He oversaw election security, he had clearance, he had access, he had trust. But for the past 4 years, he'd been running something else: a pipeline, a route that moved fentanyl north and weapons south. And he wasn't working alone. Inside his office, agents found what looked like a normal workspace at first: desk, computer, filing cabinets. Then they opened the cabinets. Behind false panels, they discovered vacuum-sealed bricks. Fentanyl, pure white powder pressed into blocks, each one lethal enough to kill thousands. The office held 73 kilograms. That's enough to produce over 36 million fatal doses. It was hidden in plain sight in a government building in the heart of Texas. But the office was just the beginning. At Mallory's home, agents found more. A detached garage had been converted into a stash house. Inside, they counted 214 kilograms of methamphetamine, 47 AR, 15 rifles, 22 handguns, ammunition crates stacked floor to ceiling, and cash. Bundles of $100 bills wrapped in plastic. The preliminary count reached $8.4 million. It was packed in duffel bags labeled with government department codes. The DEA had been tracking Mallory for 18 months. The operation started with a tip. A freight driver noticed something strange: government shipments moving at odd hours, routes that made no sense. Trucks leaving state facilities headed to the border, then returning empty. The driver reported it. The DEA started watching. They saw trucks registered to state contracts making runs to Laredo, McAllen, Brownsville, border towns. Drop points: the trucks carried legitimate state cargo on the manifests, road signs, office supplies, equipment. But hidden inside custom compartments were the real shipments: narcotics heading north, weapons heading south. The investigation revealed a network far larger than one corrupt official. Mallory was a node, an access point. He provided the credentials, the permits, the government cover, but he didn't run the operation. That role belonged to someone else, someone the cartels called Lady Diabla. Her real name was Elena Voss. Federal files showed she'd been operating for over a decade. She wasn't Mexican, she wasn't even Latina. She was born in Colorado, raised in suburban Dallas, college educated. She spoke perfect English and fluent Spanish, and she built one of the most sophisticated drug distribution networks the DEA had ever documented. Voss didn't operate like traditional cartel leaders. She avoided violence when possible. She recruited accountants, logistics experts, IT specialists. She ran the operation like a corporation. Encrypted communications, redundant supply chains, backup routes. If one shipment got intercepted, 5 more went through. If one courier got arrested, 10 more were ready. She compartmentalized information. Most people in her network didn't know they were working for a cartel. They thought they were moving freight, handling inventory, processing shipments. The system was designed to survive law enforcement pressure, and for years, it did. The FBI tracked Voss through financial records. She used a web of shell companies, fake consulting firms, import-export businesses, real estate holdings. Money flowed through dozens of accounts across 4 states. Small transactions, nothing large enough to trigger automatic alerts. But when investigators mapped the full network, they found over $47 million moving through the system in just 2 years. The money came from drug sales. It got cleaned through legitimate businesses, then it funded more operations, bought more product, hired more people. The cycle kept expanding. Voss recruited carefully. She looked for people with access: government employees, transportation workers, warehouse managers, people who could move things without raising questions. Mallory wasn't her only inside contact. The FBI identified at least 12 other government employees on her payroll. They worked in different departments, different agencies. Some processed permits. Some managed vehicle registrations, others handled shipping manifests. Each one provided a small piece of the puzzle. Together, they created a pathway through the system. A route that bypassed normal security checks. The breakthrough came from phone records. Not Voss's phone. She never used phones, but one of her lieutenants made a mistake. He used the same burner phone twice, called the same number from different locations. The DEA traced the pattern. They identified meeting points, drop locations, storage facilities. They mapped the entire distribution network across Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. Over 200 locations. Some were legitimate businesses, others were fronts. All of them connected back to the same central operation. On October 6th, the FBI executed simultaneous raids. 83 locations hit at the same time. They arrested over 800 people. The coordination involved local police, state troopers, federal agents, and border patrol. Teams moved before sunrise. They wanted surprise. They wanted to prevent evidence from being destroyed. They wanted to take down the whole network at once. And they did. At the warehouse registered under Mallory's shell company, agents found the motherlode. Industrial shelving units lined the walls, each one stacked with product. They counted 430 kilograms of fentanyl, 900 kilograms of methamphetamine, 327 firearms. Most were AR-15 variants. Some were modified for full auto. Others had suppressors, serial numbers filed off. These were weapons meant for cartel enforcers. They were heading south to Mexico to be used in cartel wars. The warehouse also contained packaging equipment, vacuum sealers, label printers, scales, cutting agents. Everything needed to process bulk narcotics into street-level doses. But this wasn't a street operation. This was industrial scale. The equipment could process hundreds of kilograms per day. The operation was designed for volume, for efficiency, for profit. Voss was arrested at a ranch outside San Antonio. She wasn't hiding. She was living openly under her real name. Agents found her working in a home office. Computer screens showed shipping routes, inventory databases, financial spreadsheets. She'd built a digital command center. She tracked every shipment, every payment, every person in the network. The FBI seized her computers. The data they recovered filled multiple hard drives. It documented 4 years of operations, names, dates, locations, amounts, everything. During her interrogation, Voss showed no emotion. She didn't deny anything. She didn't ask for a lawyer immediately. She simply stated facts. She'd built the network from scratch. She'd recruited every key player, she'd designed the logistics system, she'd created the money laundering structure, she treated it like a business presentation, cold, analytical, detached. The agents interviewing her said it was like talking to a CEO, not a drug lord. The scale of the operation shocked investigators. In 4 years, Voss's network had moved an estimated 12 tons of fentanyl into the United States. That's enough to kill every person in America 3 times over. It had moved 23 tons of methamphetamine, and it had smuggled over 4,000 firearms south into Mexico. The profits exceeded $200 million. Most of that money had been laundered through legitimate businesses. Some had been invested in real estate. Some sat in offshore accounts. The FBI was still tracing all of it. But the numbers didn't capture the real damage. Fentanyl is the deadliest drug in American history. 2 milligrams can kill an adult. The amount Voss's network distributed caused an estimated 14,000 overdose deaths. Those are just the cases investigators could directly link to her supply chain. The actual number is likely much higher. Each death left behind families, parents who lost children, children who lost parents, communities torn apart, lives destroyed, all for profit. The case exposed critical vulnerabilities in government systems. Mallory had passed background checks. He'd been vetted. He'd been trusted with sensitive responsibilities. Yet he'd been working for a cartel for 4 years. How did that happen? The FBI identified several factors. Inadequate monitoring of employee activities, No cross-referencing of personal financial records with government salaries. No random audits of secure facilities. No tracking of after-hours access to government buildings. The system relied on trust. Voss exploited that trust. The other government employees in the network had similar profiles. They'd all passed screenings, they all had clean records, they all appeared to be normal public servants. But they'd been recruited through a combination of money and pressure. Some were bribed, offered amounts they couldn't refuse, others were compromised. Voss found weaknesses, debts, addictions, secrets. She used leverage. Once someone took the first payment, they were locked in. Leaving meant exposure, arrest, ruin. So they stayed, and the network grew. The legal proceedings moved quickly. Federal prosecutors filed charges against all 803 arrested individuals. The charges ranged from drug trafficking to weapons smuggling to money laundering to conspiracy. Many defendants took plea deals. They provided information in exchange for reduced sentences. That information led to more arrests, more seizures. The case kept expanding even after the initial raids. Voss faced 73 federal charges: conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, conspiracy to smuggle firearms, money laundering, racketeering, operating a continuing criminal enterprise. Each charge carried a maximum sentence. Prosecutors made it clear they were seeking life without parole. Voss's defense attorneys argued she'd been coerced by Mexican cartels, that she'd been threatened, that she'd built the network under duress. The prosecution presented evidence that contradicted every claim. Financial records showing she'd initiated the operation, communications proving she'd recruited others, testimony from network members confirming she'd made all major decisions. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found her guilty on all counts. Mallory accepted a plea deal. He agreed to testify against other defendants in exchange for 40 years instead of life. During his testimony, he described how Voss had recruited him. She'd approached him at a political fundraiser. Started with friendly conversation, then business opportunities, then a proposal. She needed someone with government access, someone who could authorize shipments, someone who could provide cover. She offered him $200,000 for the first year, more if the operation succeeded. He said yes. He justified it by telling himself he was just signing papers, not hurting anyone directly. That rationalization lasted until his arrest. The arrest disrupted the cartel supply chain across the entire Southwest. Fentanyl seizures at the border dropped by 40% in the months following the raids. Overdose deaths in Texas decreased by 18%. The network had been a major artery. Cutting it off had immediate effects, but investigators knew it wouldn't last. Other networks would adapt. New routes would open. The demand still existed. And where there's demand, someone will supply. The case became a national security briefing topic. Congressional committees held hearings. They wanted to know how government systems had been compromised, what safeguards had failed, what needed to change. The FBI recommended new protocols, mandatory financial audits for employees with access to sensitive systems, random screening of government facilities, cross-agency communication about suspicious activities, whistleblower protections for people who report corruption. Some recommendations became policy. Others got blocked by bureaucracy and budget constraints. Public reaction was intense. Citizens felt betrayed. A government official had been working for a cartel, using his position to poison communities. The trust in institutions took a hit. Polls showed confidence in government dropped by 12 points in Texas. People wanted accountability. They wanted assurance it couldn't happen again. But the reality is more complex. Systems can always be exploited. Trust can always be abused. Perfect security doesn't exist. The only defense is vigilance, constant monitoring, willingness to question, courage to report suspicious activity. The seized assets from the operation went into federal accounts. The cash, the real estate, the vehicles, everything got liquidated. Proceeds went toward funding drug treatment programs and supporting families of overdose victims. It wasn't enough. Money can't replace lost lives, but it was something, a small attempt at repairing damage that can never fully be undone. Law enforcement called the case a success. They dismantled a major network, arrested hundreds of criminals, seized tons of drugs and weapons, stopped millions in cartel profits. But they also acknowledge the larger truth. This was one network. Dozens more exist. The drug war isn't won with raids, it's an ongoing battle. One that requires resources, dedication, and public support. The Voss case showed what's possible when agencies work together, when intelligence gets shared, when operations get coordinated. For the families of overdose victims, the arrests brought mixed emotions. Some felt justice had been served, others felt it came too late. Their loved ones were still gone. The arrests didn't change that, but they did prevent future deaths. And that mattered. Every dose of fentanyl seized is a potential life saved. Every dealer arrested is one less connection between cartels and communities. The case file remains open. Investigators continue following leads, tracking money, identifying additional network members who escaped the initial raids. Some fled to Mexico. Others disappeared into other states. The FBI maintains a task force dedicated to hunting them down. The work continues because the threat continues. Cartels adapt. They learn from mistakes. They rebuild. The fight doesn't end with one major bust. The story of Lady Diabla and her government-connected drug empire serves as a reminder. Corruption can happen anywhere, even in trusted institutions, even in positions of authority. The only defense is awareness, questioning when something seems wrong, reporting suspicious activity, supporting law enforcement efforts, and demanding accountability from those in power. Democracy relies on trust, but that trust must be earned and verified and protected. Next video,